When most people think of Vin Diesel, they think of muscle cars and explosions. But off-screen, his wrist game is a lot more interesting. Between public sightings, movie roles, and collector reports, here are 10 watches tied to the man behind Dom Toretto. Kicking off our countdown is the fact that Vin Diesel still wears a Casio G-Shock like a regular guy. Here's a man worth $225 million, and when he steps out for a casual day, he's got a Casio G-Shock strapped to his wrist. He didn't go for a Rolex or an Audemars Piguet, just a rugged G-Shock that you or I could grab for under $100. And weirdly enough, that tells you more about his taste than a diamond bezel ever could. For a guy whose on-screen character once drove a car off a skyscraper, the choice of a tough everyday watch kinda makes sense. The G-Shock doesn't care about prestige, it cares about survival, and apparently so does Diesel. But don't let that casual side fool you. His collection gets a lot more interesting from here. Coming in at number 9 is the Cartier Française. Now, before Diesel became a global superstar, a photograph from 2001 caught him wearing something surprisingly elegant. He was wearing a medium model 25mm Cartier Française in stainless steel. It had stainless steel, compact proportions, silver dial, and blued hands. Even its retail price landed around $4,800 at the time. Interestingly, the Cartier Française is one of the most recognizable dress watches in the world, and about as far from a muscle car as you can get. It said a lot about Diesel's taste even in his early career days. He wasn't just the action guy, he had range, on screen and on his wrist. However, that was a vintage flex. Wait until you hear what he wore on the big screen. Making it to number 8 is the Victorinox Swiss Army. Now, not every watch tied to Vin Diesel comes from a paparazzi photo. Some of them are burned into pop culture because he wore them on screen. When Vin first suited up as Xander Cage in the 2002 action blockbuster XXX, the prop department brought out the Victorinox Swiss Army. This isn't your standard luxury watch. It's a piece of tactical gear with a wide sideways digital display. Patek might have rubies, but Victorinox has engineered design for pilots to read the time without ever letting go of the steering wheel. The Swiss-made beast also has a brushed steel finish and a dual display that handles the chronograph and the perpetual calendar. For a character who jumps out of planes and snowboards away from avalanches, it was a perfect match. And among movie watch fans, it's become one of those sleeper pieces people still track down because of its connection to XXX. Meanwhile, if you think this specialized Swiss tech is impressive, Vin's love for rugged gear goes way deeper. Up next at number 7 is the Citizen EcoDrive Multifunction. In the 2017 blockbuster XXX Return of Xander Cage, Vin Diesel didn't just play a spy, he wore a spy's watch. He had a Citizen EcoDrive Multifunction on his wrist. This watch has a steel case, steel band, black dial, and 3 sub-dials. Now, did you know that the EcoDrive movement means it's solar powered? This is not some made-up Hollywood prop piece. The Citizen B612 is a real watch, originally released around 2013. It's practical, cool, and suits the character perfectly. More like the kind of watch that can survive an action sequence with no batteries required because the sun keeps it ticking. Now, that was a solid on-screen choice, but what about its real-life luxury side? Number 6 is where things start heating up. The Panerai Luminor. Vin Diesel is a known fan of Panerai watches, and he's been spotted wearing several different models over the years. The Panerai Luminor is a legendary piece of horological history, originally developed for the Italian Navy in the 1930s. It's built like a tank and looks like nothing else on the market, with its cushion-shaped case, signature lever-locking crown guard, and bold legibility. This watch screams adventure. For a man who essentially plays an aquatic superhero on screen, the Luminor is almost too perfect a fit. Prices from the Luminor range from roughly $5,000 to well over $20,000, depending on the configuration. Yeah, we know the Panerai ticks all the boxes. However, the next watch is every pilot's dream. Meanwhile, if you're into celebrity watch collections, hit the like button and subscribe. Now, let's get into the serious money. At number 5 is the Breitling Navitimer. The Breitling Navitimer is one of those watches that doesn't just tell time, it tells you the owner probably has opinions about engineering. That's why we weren't surprised when Diesel was linked to one, so let's run a bit of a history check, shall we? The Navitimer has been a staple of aviation since 1952. It was worn by pilots, collected by enthusiasts, and coveted by anyone who appreciates a watch that actually does something beyond tell the time. The Breitling can also calculate your flight time, fuel consumption, and rate of climb. It retails between the range of $7,000 to $12,000 if you love to add one to your collection. The fact that Diesel even owns one suggests his taste in watches leans towards the functional and historical, rather than just the flashy. Now up next is the racing watch he was always meant to own, Rolex Daytona. What do you strap to your wrist when you're the face of the world's biggest car franchise? If you're Vin Diesel, you go with the only watch that can actually keep up with a nitro-boosted engine. This is a classic racing chronograph that's highly sought after by collectors. Originally designed for professional drivers at the Florida tracks, it features a bezel that can calculate speed based on travel time. A stainless steel model regularly fetches $30,000 to $50,000 on the secondary market, and some rare references go for far more. For the man who's built an entire franchise around the romance of speed, wearing a Daytona isn't just a style choice, it's basically a character requirement. Now, since we've already established that the Daytona was made for speed, our number 3 is different, and it was made for the sea. Coming up next is the Ulysse Nardin Marine. This one might surprise you, because it's not a name that gets thrown around as much as Rolex or Patek, but it should. According to watch media coverage, Diesel's collection includes a Ulysse Nardin Marine Chronometer. Now, Ulysse Nardin is a Swiss watchmaker with a history going back to 1846, and the Marine Chronometer is its most celebrated piece. It was originally built to the exact standards used by naval officers to navigate at sea. These watches are certified for accuracy in a way most luxury watches aren't even tested against. You can get a Marine Chronometer if you have between $10,000 and $30,000. It's the choice of a man who appreciates heritage, craftsmanship, and the kind of prestige that doesn't need to shout. We'd say that this is a very deliberate and interesting addition to this collection. Now, we're moving from the sea to a watch brand you won't believe at our runner-up position. All the way up at number 2 is the Richard Mille RM 032. Now, Vin Diesel has been rumoured in the blogs to have a Richard Mille RM 032. We all know the RM as a high-end sports watch with a complex automatic movement. It's more of a diver's chronograph, but calling it just that is like calling a Ferrari just a car. Richard Mille watches are among the most technically advanced timepieces ever made. They often use materials borrowed from aerospace and Formula One engineering. It has a flyback chronograph, an aggressively technical dial layout that puts the movement front and center, and water resistance to 300 meters. Vin's choice of this watch proves he's not just looking for something shiny, rather he wants a watch that matches his larger-than-life energy. The price tag is pegged between $150,000 to $200,000. Okay, if you think his wrist game is all about price tags and celebrity excess, you'd be missing the bigger picture. Finally, this tells us exactly what kind of watch guy he really is. Once you look at Vin Diesel's wrist long enough, one thing becomes obvious. He doesn't gravitate toward delicate dress pieces or polished status symbols. He leans towards masculine watches with real presence. It doesn't matter if it's a G-Shock or even a Richard Mille, the common thread is the same. These aren't quiet watches, they're bold and built like they could survive a car chase. That tells you more about Vin Diesel than any single luxury flex ever could. His taste is not only expensive, but also consistent. Now, which of his watches would you love to add to your collection? Tell us in the comments down below. And if you want to check out Jason Statham's collection, it's already showing on your screen. Just click on it and I'll see you there.